Good afternoon. As we approach the Thanksgiving holiday, I'd like to spend some time considering with you what it is that we'll be celebrating. Now, we are always able, and we should always, give thanks to God for His gifts. But our holiday on Thursday is an opportunity to focus our attention more particularly upon this call in our lives to be grateful to God. For God blesses us richly. God blesses us more than we realize. We probably don't notice all of God's blessings because we spend so much time wishing for things that we don't have. I recently read a new insight into God's blessing that intrigued me. It was written by a gentleman named Christopher Wright Mitchell, and it comes from way back in the 1980s. But it's still relevant. And I'm sharing it with you to add fresh perspective to your Thanksgiving. When we thank God for our blessings, we often focus on what the particular blessings are. Dr. Mitchell wrote that what matters most about God's blessings are not the benefits themselves, but the connection with God that the blessing represents. He wrote, "The factor that makes a blessing is the relationship between God and the person blessed. God blesses because of His favorable attitude toward a person or a group of people. A blessing is any benefit or utterance which God freely bestows in order to make known to the recipient and to others that He is favorably disposed toward the recipient. The type of benefit God actually bestows when He blesses is of secondary importance." Okay, what does this mean in plain English? The definition of a blessing is whatever God gives to let us know that He loves us. A blessing could be a mountain of gold or fame or fortune or miraculous healing from a deadly disease. But a blessing could also be that glimpse of sunshine on a cloudy day, or a sudden inspiration that reframes the situation you're in. A blessing could be a kind word unexpected from a stranger. What matters isn't what God gives, but why God gives it. When it comes to blessings from God, it's true that it's the thought that counts. The blessing is an indication that God is thinking of you, and He smiles when He does. Dr. Mitchell went on to talk about the effect that receiving a blessing has upon us and also on those around us. He wrote, "God's blessing is a visible sign of His favor that attracts the attention of others and makes them desire God's blessings too." Again, in plain English, he says that blessings help other people recognize God's love for you. But now here's an important point. The reason why people should notice God's love for you that the blessing represents is not that they will think more highly of you, not to think that you are some great person, that you receive this privilege of God's love and blessing. No, the reason for them to recognize it is to evoke within them the desire to receive this blessing of God's favor for themselves as well. The reason why we share the news about how God blesses us is not to puff ourselves up, but to call attention to God's goodness, to the love He wants to share with everyone, so that they would say, "I wish I could have what that person has," and that desire will lead them to seek God more fully in their lives. There's one more point. Blessings come not just for people who are already in a close relationship with God. Blessings are a way that God calls people into a close relationship with Him. This means that a blessing is not a reward for being a good person or being faithful. It's not God's pat on the head to tell you you did a good job. No, blessings are invitations to delve more deeply into that bond that the Lord wants to forge with you. God takes the first step in the relationship with us. I'm going to talk more about that in the next devotion. His blessings are ways in which he announces himself into our lives. He introduces himself so that we can respond to him with our love, with our devotion, and yes, with our thanksgiving. Would you pray with me, please? Lord, when we consider your blessings in our lives, we truly are humbled, for we know that they do not come to us because we deserve them, and they come upon us more fully and richly than we could ever imagine. Help us, Lord, in whatever form your blessing takes in our lives, to recognize what it truly represents, the true importance of the blessing, that it shows your love for us, and that it is a way in which we can receive the desire to come more and more closely in contact with you. Amen. Thanks for joining me. We'll talk again later.